Matthew Stuckey here from Verity Baptist Church, Philippines, just giving you a quick missionary update. And our total for the month of June for 2022 was 761 salvations. And so, we're doing lots of soul winning at all of our churches. We are in the rainy season right now, which can sometimes be a bit of a hindrance. But what we've usually found is it seems like God holds off the weather for us to be able to do our soul winning beforehand. And we haven't had any soul winning marathons recently because there's been no national holidays that are Monday through Friday. They're appearing usually on the weekends, which are already soul winning events and church services anyway. But we're looking forward to, in a couple months, once we kind of get back to that, we'll be able to do even more soul winning. But overall, things are going well. In terms of sermons that are being preached, we're going through the book of Genesis on Tuesdays. I've loved going through Genesis. It's kind of opened up a lot of stories more in my mind as I've studied and read them. We are going to take a bit of a break from Genesis now, though, for a couple weeks, maybe a month. I'm going to probably preach some standalone or small sermon series on Tuesdays, just because it's such a long book, and I often preach several sermons per chapter, so we've been there for like 40 weeks, so I want to take a bit of a break. We're going through Daniel and Song of Solomon on the weekends. After that, we'll probably start going to some just regular sermon series or standalone sermons rather than just every sermon being kind of verse by verse through a book. But I've enjoyed both the series. The book of Daniel is obviously very interesting, and I think the Song of Solomon, a lot of people have been really interested by that sermon series. I've gotten more compliments on that series and on those sermons than anyone I've done. A lot of people have told me that they just always kind of read the book before, kind of poetically, but not really searching deep for doctrine, and they're surprised how much information there is. It kind of shows us the Word of God is definitely infinite. There's a lot of practical wisdom in that book, and so I know it doesn't sound like the most exciting thing, Song of Solomon chapter 2, Song of Solomon chapter 3, but honestly, for those of us that are married or that are not married but want to have strong marriages and be prepared, I think the Song of Solomon is probably the best book for that. So whenever I get done with the series, I'm planning to do kind of some handouts and some supplementary tools to help you understand the Song of Solomon better, or for people that want to dig into it. And I shared on Facebook recently the Song of Solomon with the colors red, blue, and green to denote who's speaking. And I was surprised how many shares it got, so I'm actually going to be doing some more supplementary tools in the future for the Song of Solomon. Not just for our church people, but if for those outside of our church would be interested as well. I know I studied the Song of Solomon about 8 years ago before I was married, just to prepare for marriage, and I was surprised how much I actually learned. Of course, I studied it again as we're going through it verse by verse, and there's just a lot of great information, a lot of practical wisdom on anything related to dating, marriage, even on raising kids, and there's a lot of symbolism with other stuff. So it's been very interesting to me, at least, so I encourage you to check that out. The sermon of the month was Paul the Apostle versus Philip the Evangelist. I don't really want to go too much into the detail of that sermon. It was the Father's Day sermon, but if you're not as familiar with Acts, or maybe you've kind of skipped over, part of what makes that sermon more interesting is that you don't necessarily know the character Philip that well, or know how much he's talked about in the book of Acts. But I just kind of gave a comparison between two great men of God that are very, very different from one another, just in different stages of life. And so you can check out that sermon. But overall, things are going well. Nothing too crazy, which when you're part of a church, that's actually a blessing. And so things are going well. Just continue to be in prayer for our ministry. And thank you, and God bless.